On today's episode, we have Pamela Henrie, the creator of the Success Choice System, which includes a digital award-winning planner, but also her mind is so dialed in to success systems, personal development, and how we think about the way that we spend our time. Today is basically a masterclass on how to show up to be the human that you want to be while utilizing your resources so that you're spending time on the right things. In Pick My Brain, we're talking all about how to make sure you're not plagiarizing other people's content, and on Favorite Things, we're sharing a few of my favorite holiday traditions. I can't wait to hear yours. Thank you for watching Make It Happen, and welcome. This segment of Pick My Brain is brought to you by a question that was sent in by a client of mine named Tammy Van Hoy. She sent this question and I love it. And it's a really great distinction that needs to be made because I talk all about repurposing content or looking and seeing what other people do and creating similar things. But there's a very fine line between recreating something as yours and plagiarism. And so she was just asking, how do you know what the difference is? I'm sure there's lots of different ways to look at this, but plagiarism, by definition, is really just copying what someone else is doing. We talk about this a lot in terms of like teenagers. If somebody were to copy a paper online and turn it in as their own, that would be plagiarism. Now, if somebody were looking at a paper online and looking at what somebody was saying and then taking an opposite approach or handling it in a different way, they're using that paper as research. In social media content, you might see someone do a reel that you like or a YouTube video or maybe even a whole social media post. And you might say, oh, this is awesome. In fact, I save a lot of social media posts and then I go through and look at them and I use them for ideas that springboard me into something else. Sometimes I'll take an entirely opposite approach of someone. They'll say, hey, this is the best way to grow your social media following. And I will say, hey, some people say this is the best way to grow your social media following, but actually you should be doing X, Y, and Z. That's not plagiarism. That's repurposing content or trying to put your own spin on things. You might have some things that you take and hear from other people that you can use as long as you attribute them when you're doing it. For example, I have seen people take my content and the ways that I teach things and pass it off as theirs. And I'm actually fine if people take and use my content, but they should just say, hey, Michelle McCullough in her book XYZ talks about this. And then they're attributing me and using that content, which is fine, but they're not taking it and claiming it as theirs. And so just be careful about how you take ideas. Make sure that you're putting your own spin on them. Make sure that if you are sharing something that's exactly the same, that you are acknowledging the author or creator. But above all, find ways to let what you see spark ideas and interest and ask yourself the question, how can I make this better? Or how can I do this differently? And then from there, your brain will start to think of it in a different way. And you might even in the end share very similar content, but you might be able to put your own spin on it in a way that makes more sense that it came from you. I will absolutely say that I tell people all the time, take a look around, see what your competitors are doing, see what other people are doing in your industry, see what other people are doing in opposite industries and learn from them. But that doesn't mean to take their content and make it as your own. So I hope that these ideas will be helpful for you so that you can walk that fine line between research and development and just straight up copying that will help you grow and build your business online. If you have a question that you'd like me to answer on a future episode like this, you can send it into Michelle@speakmichelle.com. Put Pick My Brain in the subject line, and I would love to answer your questions. Thanks for sending them in. Today we have Pamela Henrie on Make It Happen. We actually go way back. I met her, I think, almost 15 years ago through Startup Princess. And then our paths continue to cross through different business networks and networking groups. And then she became an attendee at Marketing Blueprint. And this year has been one of my year-long marketing clients. And Pamela, I'm so excited to be here, but what they need to know about you is that you are a success expert. You're the creator of the Success Choice System, which also includes the award-winning Success Choice Planner. And you're also just an amazing woman up to great things, living a fantastic life. And so welcome to Make It Happen.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me here.
We're going to cover a lot of different details today, but I want to get started. Like, what is the Success Choice System? Because it's not just a planner, it's way more than that. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so really it goes back 15, actually 18-ish years ago, I went to this panel discussion where there were 4 women who were pillars of the community, and they talked openly and honestly about their struggles with depression. And there was a lot of questions, a lot of comments, and from the questions and comments and tears in the room, it was clear a lot of these women were struggling with this. And while this was a group of women, men are not immune to this. This is a struggle. But as I listened to the questions and comments, I was noticing some themes that seemed to keep reoccurring. And one was just the tendency to measure against perfection or to measure against some unrealistic ideal. And we fall into the habit of looking at someone else's strength, and we're not strong in that area, so we beat ourselves up and we feel less than. And social media really has contributed a lot to this, because we're seeing everything our friends' kids are involved in. We think, oh, our kids should be doing that. Or they're on these great vacations, or they fixed up their house, and like, oh, my house hasn't been fixed up in a long time, or they got a new car. So we start to measure ourselves and see where we're lacking. So that was kind of the first, really probably the most common theme that arose. The second was just feeling stuck. Kind of stuck in the minutia of the everyday tasks, whether you're working at a job that you're just kind of feeling stuck in that minutia, or if you're at home, kind of stuck in that minutia. And the third was not getting needs met, just really trying to be all things to all people, and, forgetting those, core things that meet your needs. So I really could relate to this at the time, because at this time I had gotten remarried about 5 years before this, and my husband's 4 kids had come to live with us shortly after that. So I went from 1 child to 4 children immediately, and teenagers immediately. And then we had a child together 2 years later. So at the time of this particular meeting, I had kids in high school, middle school, elementary school, and a toddler. And my kids were all involved in various activities and doctor's appointments. I think we had 3 kids in braces at one time. And so I felt like I was always in the car running. I was always cooking, always cleaning up, and really feeling stuck myself. So I really thought, we're raising the next generation, and what are we teaching them if we're feeling unfulfilled and unhappy, and we're going through life like it's drudgery? And I really felt this need to want to do something to improve this, but I didn't know what to do. So I spent about 2 years just reading personal development books that had been my love before, that I had kind of gotten out of the habit of, and filling journal after journal of notes. And after 2 years, I came up with the system and a planner idea, and I ran it by my husband, and he thought, that's a really good idea. You got to run with this. So the Success Choice system was born, and the Success Choice, and I've been doing it ever since. So it'll be 15 years coming up. So with a system, it kind of has 4 R's to realizing your potential, or realizing your best self. And the first R is reasons. So I think a lot of time we lose sight of our reasons, like, why am I in this career? Why am I doing this job? You can just really start to focus on that minutia part. Or if you're at home with your kids, you're like, why am I here? Why am I washing these dishes all the time? Why am I cleaning this house all the time? Why am I running these kids? And we can kind of lose track of that reason. And, just speaking to the home, I know a lot of times when you're just cleaning your house thinking, why am I washing these dishes again and cooking this meal again? I feel like for me, when my house is clean and orderly and organized, my kids want to be there. My family wants to be there. Their friends want to be there. And I have more opportunity to influence when I'm around my kids and when they want to be there. And if I create a meal that they want to be at, I have, again, that opportunity to influence. And if I'm driving my kids to and from something, that's, again, opportunity to talk and create that relationship. So helping to remember those reasons. And then really, so in the planner and in this system, there is a place where you can kind of revisit and refine your purpose each week. And then there's these 8 areas of balance, or the 8 areas of your life, where you can just kind of look at and create some ideals in those areas. And the ideals are not to measure yourself against, they're a direction. So I think of, like a North Star, the sailors would use that to chart the direction, but they didn't ever expect to arrive at the North Star. That wasn't their expectation, but it did help create that direction. And so when you are intentional about your ideals and where you want to be, it really helps to inform your choices and filter your choices through that lens. And I'm not saying that you spend equal time in each area every single day, or, because that's not realistic. But when you neglect any of those areas, then it calls, you get sick, you have a strained relationship. So it's important to really be aware of and create that intentional direction that you want to be filling your days with, so you're less likely to be pulled into other people's ideals on social media, because you know what, that's not what's important to me right now, and you can kind of let it go. And also, when I talk about balance, if you look up balance, you type balance in Google and you look at images, a lot of times you'll come up with this image of rocks stacked on top of each other, and that's balance. But that's kind of a stagnant balance. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking more of a riding your bike balance, where you're making little corrections with the steering, with the handlebars. But if you stop with your feet on the pedals, you fall over. And so there's movement and direction and continuing to move forward. So this leads me to the second R, which is refinement. And this is your improvement and your growth. So this is, I like to think of quarterly goals. A lot of times goals get a bad rap. People can get overwhelmed with goals. But I really like quarterly goals because I feel like 90 days is a great amount of time to see some real progress. But it's long enough to see some real progress, but short enough that it doesn't feel too overwhelming. It's not a huge year thing. It's a much shorter. And this was born from about 13 years ago. My husband and I bought this fixer-upper house. And one of my values is improving myself and my world, and I like to improve a neighborhood. So my husband and I have fixed up 5 different houses. But this particular house, it had been a rental, and 3 families with a total of 21 children had lived in it. So there was a lot of damage, and there was some water damage, and it had been foreclosed on, and it hadn't been lived in a year. So the yard had died and really needed a lot of work. But we really liked the potential of the house and the yard. We liked the layout, we liked the potential, so we thought, yeah, we can take this on. But it really ended up being a much bigger project than we expected. And everywhere we looked, there was something that needed to be done. And we found ourselves feeling so overwhelmed and depressed. And why did we do this? There's just so much to do. We can't have a life. This house is our life, and we started to get way overwhelmed. So what I did was I decided I would just break down all the projects into 3-month projects. And we made a rule for ourselves that we could only look at the current project. We couldn't look at all the projects that needed to be done. We could look at past projects for motivation. So like, hey, cheer ourselves on. Look, we've done this, this, and this. The 30 other projects that still needed to happen, we couldn't even look at. And this really helped us to move forward. And eventually, we ticked them all off, and they got done, and then it was great. But when we were looking at everything, then it was too overwhelming. So with this, with these quarterly projects, we also broke it down into monthly milestones. So we'd have this, at the end of this 3 months, we want this to happen. And if we're on target, at the end of the first month, we need to be here. At the end of the second month, we need to be here. And then at the end here. And then we could break that down again into weekly goals and projects, and then kind of some daily things. So this leads me into the third R, which is routines, which is your habits. And so I really like to start with this quarterly overview, breaking down into monthly, weekly, and daily habits. Because really, we're creating habits all the time. We are creatures of habit. Our habits are going to happen automatically. Why not try to intentionally put in some positive habits? We can have the habit of constantly grabbing fast food on the way home, or we can, plan out our meal, or we can veg out with 3 hours of TV, or we can have a project scheduled, so we can kind of intentionally put in some routines that can help, that are based on our values and our areas of balance, so that it can take us closer. And I feel like the 2 times a day that you have the most influence is when you first get up in the morning and right before you go to bed. The middle of the day, all kinds of things can happen. You can totally get derailed, and you may not have control over a lot of things happening during the day. But really, when you first get up in the morning and right before you go to bed, those are 2 really critical times that you can try to intentionally put in some of those routines. Like, a spiritual reading or exercise or gratitude or some kind of a relationship thing, just whatever is important to you, you can put in during that morning and evening. I know you have power up and power down, right? Mm-hmm. And you found that really useful. And I have some routines that I like to do where, and within the system, there's some reflection or some routines that you can put in. So initially, when you put in or create a new routine or a new habit, it's like a push. You really have to think about it. You have to be really intentional. You have to schedule it, start small, really practice it. But then it eventually becomes a pull, and where you want to do it. I know, like, exercise is a great one. If you know anyone that exercises really regularly and consistently, when they don't do it, they miss it. And it has become a pull. So I think of the analogy of, probably a lot of the viewers or listeners aren't old enough to remember those old metal merry-go-rounds that were super hard to push, and my friends and I would, walk around and would be pushing it, and it would be grating and grinding, and you'd hear it, and it was hard. But then the more you did it, you were walking, then pretty soon you're running, and then pretty soon it's going so fast, you have to jump on or you're going to fly off, because it's going so fast, and then the momentum keeps you going. So I think initially it's a push, but if it's something really important to you, then it becomes a pull. Then the 4th is reflection. And this is the awareness piece. This is where you're really reviewing and taking stock of where you are, where you want to be, what's working, what's not working. And within the system, there's, weekly reflection and monthly and yearly, where you can really just take stock of what's working, what's not. And no experience is wasted that you learn from, I feel, so even the really tough things that you go through, if you look at, what benefit could come from this, that really helps, or how could this be good? I remember a few years ago, or several years ago, my husband and daughter and I went skiing up at Alta. And we just went for a half day because my daughter had half day off on Fridays and my husband works in Salt Lake. And so we decided we'd just meet in Sandy part way and just take one car up to the resort. And we left one car in an old Lowe's parking lot that had been closed, and there were, dozens of other cars parked there. So we thought, this will be a good place to leave it. We went up to ski, and as we were leaving, we ran into this guy who was going to his car who had flown in from California. And we thought, wow, that's so cool that, we just got to be here, and he had to fly in from California. And we drove down to get the other car, and when we got to the parking lot, it was empty. There wasn't a single car in that parking lot. We're like,
oh
no, where's our car? So we drove around the parking lot, and we found this little tiny square sign that said no parking, and had a number for the towing company. No, so we called, and it was this crazy amount, like $230 or something, to get our car back. And so we were pretty frustrated, and it's like, oh, this is ruining our whole day. We'd had this great day skiing, and now this happened. And so we went and we picked up the car, and we were kind of grumbling about it. But then I thought, well, what good could come from this situation? And I thought, you know what? We ran into that guy that flew in from California. Let's just imagine that we had to spend that money to come, that we're on vacation. So we did a couple little activities. We went to Shields, I think, and we went in there and, took pictures with stuff and, just kind of had fun, went out to eat, and we pretended like we were on vacation and that money was spent for our vacation. So just kind of changing our focus a little bit and thinking, what good could come from this situation? And then to remember to celebrate our successes, because when we're only measuring ourselves against where we should be, that can lead us into feeling kind of negative. But if we are looking at our progress and our efforts, then we feel happier. And then this cycle repeats. So when you've been evaluating with where you are and where you want to be and what's working, that helps to inform your values, and what you want to adjust there. And then leads into your goals and what goals and projects you want to set. And the cycle just repeats. So anyway, so those are the 4 R's.
I love it. It's like a masterclass on success principles. And I love it. I mean, I could listen to this kind of thing all day long. I want to make sure that before we go that you of course have created a planner. You are a regular contributor in the paper that's nearby. You've done that for years and years and years, a regular column. You do corporate training. You've done one-on-one consulting and coaching and things like that too. With the experience that you've had, and as you think about what people need the most, we live in kind of a weird world, and the planning and success and personal development landscape, I think, has shifted a little bit from when you started. So are there any guiding principles that you would say help people stay focused on the R's, keep moving forward in a way that's beneficial for them, that you feel like is critical to understand in this day and age?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned, it's so easy to, the world can really pull at us. We can feel really overwhelmed. And like I mentioned with social media, it's so easy to get focused outside of yourself. Mm-hmm. It's so easy to have your attention in areas where you can't control. We can't control so many things in the world, and we feel so stressed about it. But I think just looking at those little areas that you can control and focusing on that, where can I have influence? What little thing can I do? And that helps to alleviate that stress. Mm-hmm. Even if it's just, I can control my schedule. And I really like, so there's a couple of tools that I really like that are in this system. And one is a schedule template where you can kind of plan out an overall schedule a little bit and have control over where you want to put some of those things that you can control so that it's more likely to happen. And then another tool is the success or the areas of balance planner, where you can brainstorm some projects in each of those areas and you can feel like you're making progress towards something, because I know when I've been really stressed, even just doing a creative project, a little, painting my chairs or something, it really just helps me have a creative outlet. I accomplish something and my mind can relax, with all of my stresses, and, just have things that you do for yourself where you're taking care of yourself and renewing and focusing on what you can control.
I think one of the things that I really like about your system, as I've looked at it over the last 15 years, because I remember when I first got a planner, and I've had a few over the years too, and I know that you have men who buy your planners too, and so I'm not trying to focus, but I think as a woman, I don't want to give up aspects of me. I don't want to give up the one who still tries to be domestic, even though that's not my strong suit. I don't want to be the one who gives up working on myself, even though I have a business and kids that I want to focus on. And so what I love is it's not just a schedule. There are reminders about who I want to be as a human, and they help me be proactive about who I want to be and not reactive. And so I love all of those pieces and elements, because I also feel like we're pulled in so many different directions. And I think, generally speaking, from good sources and good reasons, like there's lots of good things to do. You can have a garden and own a business and raise great kids or have influence on other teenagers or whatever that is. Like there's all these things that we kind of talk about like a juggle. But it doesn't have to be a juggle if you're doing it with intention and if you're using a system to help you. And instead of telling the whole world it's a juggle to be a human or it's a juggle to be a woman, it's like, no, you were meant to be multifaceted. You were meant to have lots of interests. And here is a way, and this system can help you own all of those pieces. Is there any last minute tip that you want to add before we tell people how they can learn more about you?
Yeah, so I think we are multifaceted people, like you said, and to remember that that's all good, but to be intentional. Be intentional. Don't be swept away by the world and everyone else's values and opinions or whatever. Just take that time to be intentional. Who do I want to be? What do I want to do? And schedule it. Put it in there. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. And it's amazing how much joy really you can feel when so much is going crazy over here. But hey, I accomplished this thing towards something that's meaningful to me. Mm-hmm. And that creates joy and peace. And that's, my slogan is choosing joy in the journey, because, this is a journey that we have no control over a lot of it, but there are aspects that we can choose joy in that journey.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Pamela and I are planner sisters for sure. Sometimes we're in groups and we're over here geeking about planner stuff and other people are like, you guys are weirdos. But I do really love that. And we've often joked before that we still have crazy days, right? We still have days that don't go well. And sometimes we have a planner that is perfect and then one little thing shifts it and you have to kind of throw the whole thing out the window. And I think some people use as an excuse not to be intentional that you can't control everything and time is one of those things. And yet at the same time, you and I both know, and you've spoken to this, about how even on those days, it's still nice to know that, hey, I am still working towards my goals. I'm choosing to change this because I know that this is a priority. And it's not a matter of it not working. It's a matter of you saying, no, every moment is a choice. Every moment is an opportunity to decide where I want to be. And even if my plan looks a little bit different than I had started, it's still mine. And I still get to own and enjoy each part of our days. So I love that about what you create and what you do.
And to be happy where you are.
Yeah.
I mean, we're striving to be our best self, but we're happy now.
Yeah.
We're happy where we are right now, and it's okay. I know I've had some health issues of late, and so some things that I've wanted to get done haven't gotten done, but that's the season right now, and it's okay. It's okay.
Honor that.
Yeah, I honor that. There are still things that I'm moving forward, and sometimes you have to adjust, your ideal, for that particular area.
Okay, well, if people are interested, where can they find out more about you? Where can they find the system?
Yeah, so the successchoice.com is where you can find the system. And if you also would like to get a free PDF of the schedule template and the Aries of Balance planner, so you can kind of schedule in some of those things that are important to you, as well as kind of brainstorm some projects and things that might lead you closer to your ideal, you can send an email to support@thesuccesschoice.com and put "Make It Happen" in the subject line, and we will make sure to get that out. And you can find us also with Facebook. Our handle is The Success Choice, and Instagram as well is The Success Choice, @The Success Choice. So love to hear from you there.
Awesome. All of those links are listed in the show notes, and we've got all those details there, especially if you want an email and just sit down and look at it. I'm a planner junkie and love looking at different planners. And so even if you choose to then use a digital planner or something else, you can see kind of the template and the breakdown of how she works it to put that into the system that you use. So I encourage you to take advantage of that offer because it's fun to see how she's put all that together. Pamela, thank you so much for being on Make It Happen. We're glad you're here.
Thank you so much.
And welcome to a few of my favorite things, Holiday Traditions Edition. I had to practice that and saying that. I've actually messed up on different parts because I didn't practice those parts, but Holiday Traditions Edition. Here we go. So I love this time of year. I love that there are fun things going on. I love Thanksgiving. I love Christmas. I love celebrating with friends. I love celebrating with family, but I always feel like It is like pedal to the ground, and we are speeding through the holidays, and I desperately want to savor them. So here are some of the things that I do to spend time on traditions while also savoring the things that we have. We've started eliminating traditions, believe it or not. I will actually sit down with the kids at the beginning of every season and say, hey, what things are most important to you? Which ones do you want to do? And I find that there are some that we break our necks for, and they don't even care about them. Now, there are a couple that they don't care about that I care about that we still go and do. But we've actually cut back on a lot of things, and we figure out some fun ways to celebrate without spending so much time running around to different things and missing the whole point of the season. So one of my favorite things is the day of Christmas. And the day after Christmas, we kind of just let everything stay out, and we stay home and we stay in our pajamas and we don't go anywhere. We might go somewhere for dinner to celebrate with family, but we block off time to just be home. The kids have brand new things to hang out with and do. We've got new books to read, and that's absolutely one of my favorite things. And I kind of live the entire season to get to that one moment, knowing that there will be times that we slow down. But we also have figured out that we will find a tradition that we do that connects with our spiritual beliefs and traditions. We'll find something fun to do that celebrates the fun bits of the season, and we find something of service to do. So we pick 3 things really that we want to do. And yeah, there's going to be other things that come up or parties that we get invited to, but we're intentional about choosing something spiritual, something fun, and something of service. And that has really helped us to simplify the season, but also make sure that we're focused on spending time together and doing things that matter most, and not doing them just because we're supposed to be doing them. I would love to hear about some of your favorite holiday traditions, whether that's Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, Hanukkah, Easter, whatever it is that you celebrate. I'm a huge holidays person. I would love to hear about some of your favorite ways that you celebrate with the people that you care about most. Please leave a note in the comments, or find me on Speak Michelle and share with that in a direct message or in the posts that we have shared for this specific episode. And I can't wait to share with you a few more of my favorite things. Well, today's episode was a lot of fun, full of business ideas, personal ideas, and even some holiday ideas. I hope that you're taking time to savor the season and savor every role and opportunity that you have. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. I would love for you to share your favorite part on your favorite social media platform, and make sure that you're subscribed so that you can hear about every episode when they happen. Thank you always for any ratings or reviews that you leave that help us be seen by other people looking for great podcasts. Thank you for being part of the Make It Happen journey. We are so happy to be part of this with you and help you have a great holiday season.